All right, all right, all right. Michael Gevin here, your mind mechanic, tuning up hearts and minds one at a time so your ideas don't die in your heart, your head, or your hard drive. All right, so $1 million business, no employees. Is it possible? I'm just curious before I say anything, if you're in the comments before I love providing perspective and thoughts because what I realize, and I've seen a number of people say this, you got something inside, say it. Now, that can be taken out of different contexts as well, but I realize that there's perspectives that I have that I share with people that there's people like, I not helpful. And there's other people like, I never thought of that. And that never thinking of it helped expand their mind to see different opportunities and see different possibilities. And so I'm just curious, possible or not possible? Before I say anything else, if you're watching this, you're leaving a comment, wherever you're at, that you can leave something. Is it possible? 0 employees. We'll even go as far as ultimately 0 contractors, 0 help. You are a solo person. $1 million business. So let's sit for a second. I have some live people on here. Just play around with me. 0 employees / 0 contractors. You are a solo person. Gross revenue, $1 million business. Possible? Not possible? Improbable? Impossible? Where are we at? What are you thinking? I mean, right now we got the Facebook people. Before I go on, what are we thinking? Anybody? Anybody? Any thoughts at all? All right, fine. It absolutely is 100% possible. The more I not only possible, it's happening. Let's just put it that way. Not only possible, but it's happening out there 100%. It all depends on what kind of business you're trying to set up, what kind of business you're trying to have. I think that there's so many programs and courses being sold to a lot of entrepreneurs that by and large, the majority of them are run by small teams of people. Now, it doesn't mean you have to have 50 people, but they're not typically run by people completely by themselves with no help. Because what I start to find is that depending on what kind of business you're going to set up and how you're wired and how disciplined you are, how focused you are, will really depend on whether or not you can pull off everything by yourself. And then to what degree of complexity is in your business. What you see is some people have been able to pull it off themselves overall, but they have no life at all, depending on how the business is set up. They have absolutely no life. And so then to either maintain or keep going or grow more, they got to get help, or else they can't keep going. They get overwhelmed, they get overworked, they get stressed, they don't have relationships with anybody, they can't have any intimate relationships, or the people who operate a certain way and are in intimate relationships, they break up, they get divorced. But by and large, it's 100% possible. There are YouTubers out there that really don't have any help overall, but they've just been able to grow a big following, and even just AdSense alone, just a simple business model, and they can make $3, $5, $10, $20, $30, $50,000 a month. So it's possible. Just what are you trying to build? And how are you trying to build it? And who are you learning from? And what are they telling you that you need to do to build the thing you're trying to build? Because sometimes things that if you're not wired a certain way, or you don't have the level of discipline, or you're not willing to build the level of discipline, or you're not wanting to learn certain skills, you're going to need help, because certain business models just are, they need people. If you're not going to, it takes a machine like human to do certain things by themselves. Now, granted, I like to bring up my man, Steve Hardison. I mean, it doesn't take, I don't know how much he exactly makes, but he's a coach, theultimatecoach.com. If you go to his website, I know 2 of the packages. I can't remember the middle one, but I think it's $10,000, $45,000, and $200,000. And basically, it's 2-hour sessions. So if we just do the math, 5 people signed up at $200,000 is $1 million. And those are 2 hours a week. So that'd be, it would come out to more or less him having 5 2-hour sessions a week. because a 2-hour session is $10,000. So the 200 grand, that's what it kind of comes out to. And I've got to interact with him. I've gotten to work with him. I know people have worked with him. And he's definitely got a full roster from what I can observe. Typically roughly 2 sessions a day, 5 days a week, probably 7 to 10 months out of the year at least, if not more. And so that's possible. It's happening. That's just one example in one industry. There are videographers and video companies where they're getting a lot of money for what they do, and they're more or less, they're the shooter and they're the editor, and they just build enough demand potentially through self-branding and self-promotion, on things like YouTube and Instagram, where they can command certain rates, and if they choose so, they can pull it off themselves. Then you get into, do you need employees? Well, that's a whole topic and conversation in itself, whether it's $1 million business or not. In regards to, some people have $1 million businesses and they don't have any employees still, but they've got contractors, and they're not like necessarily full-time contractors, maybe part-time contractors, because again, depending on what you're trying to build will depend on what you need, depending on how you're willing to live your life, what skills you're willing to learn, how much time you're willing to dedicate. I mean, there's certain people, again, maybe they're in their early 20s, they're single, they don't have any desire to date anybody, and they get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and they work till 10 o'clock at night. And you're like, I'm willing to put in about 4 hours a day, and they're putting in 14 or 18 hours a day, right? And that time compounds that maybe there's 5 skill sets that they can learn in the time you have a hard time learning 1. Because in business in general, layer upon layer that you add on that you need are all skills that, you don't have to be expert status at, but, you start getting into ads, social media, any one of those categories. As I do these videos right here, if the only thing I want to do right now is have them live on Facebook and whoever happens to watch it watches it, then it's pretty simple. I come up with a little title and I hit the live button. I talk, you're listening right now, and I hit the stop, and I can walk away and go on with my life. I don't need a soul beyond myself to do that. Now, let's take it a layer forward. Just simply across the different social media platforms, right? Facebook, Instagram. Now you can choose to just use one or the other. And as I have gotten back into, I've focused so much on my inner skills, my ability to help others, my relationship with my wife, that, for a long time, I had a lot of learning about marketing and tactics and YouTube and strategy. And I am getting back into that. And it's so fascinating to me. Some things have changed and some things haven't changed at all. But if you want to do the Gary Vaynerchuk method, I would post 100 pieces of content a day, and you're posting nonstop, and he's like every single platform, and and even if it's just create one piece of content and strip it down and redistribute it across 8 different platforms, like if you ain't got nothing else going on, then and you're willing to learn, you can do that all yourself, but it's gonna take time. Like it takes time for you to get the maximum out of it. So just me wanting to not just have this die after this thing ends and maybe a handful of people watch the replay, but to have it live on a podcast, have it be sent out to people in a newsletter, have some snippets, live on Instagram. I could just go over to YouTube and upload this, but without already possessing a following, the likelihood of this 15-minute video doing anything without any other extra effort is low. But you see the steps that start adding. That's just to upload it. If I want to give it the greater chance of being seen and found by other people, then you potentially got to do some keyword research. And you got to look things up. Okay, well, this is what maybe people are searching. And then you type that in, you type in a description, you do tags, right? And then potentially you create a thumbnail for it. You don't have to. Can be helpful. That depends as well. And then do you know how to do that? But you start layering these things on. That's not even necessarily making any money with it yet. Right? Whereas if I take the Steve Hardison model I had, he's just being present with people, just coaching people one-on-one. Just a book just came out that he didn't have to write himself. So we'll just delete that. For the last 30 years, he hasn't had that. But you take a person like that in that model, he just had some simple posts he'd make on Facebook, but the majority of his business was built with just meeting and connecting with people, rocking their world, and then them wanting to work with him. But he didn't have courses and programs and Zooms and books and being featured in the media and having podcasts and blogs and fancy websites and all these different pages and all these different packages and all this complexity and needing thumbnails and needing graphics and needing this and needing editors and editing, written editing, copywriting, right? And I think it gets really taken for granted that a lot of marketers and people selling to you at times make things sound so simple. I've said this before, I'll say it again. A lot of times you may have enough intelligence to know that this isn't true, but this is a version of what's happening, is that marketers and a lot of people are really great at selling the outcome, the result, but not how it's not what you're going to do or need to do to get there. And so once you get inside, it's as if you were buying a private jet. You want to buy a private jet. You want what a private jet to do for you. The problem is it rather having paid the money you paid, thought, man, I got a great deal. I'm going to get a private jet. I'll be able to get in and fly around. You just got everything laid out in a bunker with all the tools. No audio now. God dang. I don't think it was hearing me. Holy cow. Ugh, having some technical difficulties here today. What I was just saying when I got back there, a little delay of the audio, apologize, is that you have all that laid out and you don't know how to use any of those tools. And now you've got to learn how to do them all. Some people are willing to. Some people are willing to put in the time, the energy, and the effort to learn how to do all that. But if they're starting from scratch and there's not 300 people, what would normally take to build that, then it might take them 3 years, or depending on how much time they put in, maybe it takes them 3 months. But so many people weren't under those expectations that that's what it was going to take. And so they give up. So that's why I was going to, before I realized it was muted for a second, is people get into these things and that's what's before them. And some are ready for the challenge. Some aren't. So some quit, some give up. Others have already learned a lot of the skills. And so they're just missing a few. But you got to realize, where are you at? What are you trying to build? And how much complexity is really there? And how much is necessary? How much can you eliminate? How much can you delegate? Are there people for free? Are they cheap? Is there trade? Do you have the money? You know, where are you at? And it's where I really believe that there's not enough. It's why I get on here, because it's stuff that, you know, I wish I would have heard. I wish I would have known. It would have been helpful. It would have cut some corners here and there, that I went through things that, sure, it helps me now, but maybe you don't want to go through it, or you don't even really need to go through it. And, or you're in it right now and you're stuck, and this can unlock something. So these are just things I don't see talked about enough, to open people's minds that, yes, you can have $1 million business with no employees and no contractors. You can also have $1 million business with freaking 30 employees and 15 contractors. You can have $1 million business with 1 employee and 2 contractors. And I could go on, but I hope you get the point, is that whether it's $1 million business, $100,000 business, or $100 million business, there's a lot of different variables and a lot of different possibilities. But if you start believing and knowing that really, and I believe this, that just about anything is possible, but certain things are far more difficult than others. And so at times you're in a vehicle, you're doing something that you're doing it a certain way that I brought up before. It's like trying to cut down a tree with a butter knife, and you don't realize there's a chainsaw. And so I hope that from time to time, I can expand someone's mind so that they know that there's likely a chainsaw in the scenario you're working on. And what is it? And I have to have that reminder for myself all the time with the things that I'm doing. Am I trying to use a butter knife right now? Is there a chainsaw available? Because I do believe, and it doesn't have to have anything to do with being lazy. People want to shame people because some people take 80 hours to do something that somebody else can get the same result in 5. I think probably some kids hated me in school because, they spent 3 weeks on the project and I would do the least amount of effort and still get an A. Not because I was smarter. I always have looked for the most efficient way. Some things you want to take longer and you want to enjoy longer. And other things, it's just completely unnecessary. And so in most things in life, for me and in business, I'm looking to spend the most amount of time doing the thing that I love the most and the least amount of time doing things I don't want to, or that hopefully I don't even have to. And so you get to decide that, and you get to think that, what are those ways that I could do what I love, eliminate the unnecessary. I want to end on this. There was a time in my career in video, I had a lot of packages, and I just read something the other day with somebody, sharing this particular way of doing things, which was, have this base price and then have all this a la carte. And that they would say that you're losing money if you either have packages, because then if you had a 1, 3, and 5, there could be somebody willing to spend 8, but because you don't give them that option, they will never spend 8. And so you can do the alternative, which is start at 3 and then have everything add on. So somebody might be able to spend 15 with you. And if they want to, they can add all that on. And I just go, that's fine. They're not wrong. It's not neither right or wrong. It's not necessarily, it's a better or worse way. It's a way, but it still depends on you, because I tried a lot of those things. And I had gotten to a place in my business where I had one specific thing that I loved, and I did. I said, here's the price for it. I do this and I'm done. That's not how I word it, but I do this and I'm done is my internal. I do this, I rock this out, I walk away, you're happy, I'm happy. It's great. I go on to the next one. And I love that. Because yes, could I have added on other things? Sure. But those other things mean either I have to do it, and if I'm not willing to do it or don't like it or don't want to do it, then who's doing it? Somebody's got to do it. Then how are they doing it? Now you got to manage that person. Right. And I think people take for granted. Now, I don't like to complicate things, but if you feel in your brain that things are complicated, that's what I love to do with people. Get them clear, get them focused. I've had a lot of practice in my own life creating a complicated mess out of things and then simplifying it. And it makes all the difference in the world. And I've gotten dang on good at doing it for others and hearing what you've got going on, hearing the struggles, hearing the complications, hearing the options, hearing the shiny object, and being able to help provide a relief, a peace, a clarity, a confidence, so that you have the ability to eliminate all the unnecessary so that you can focus on what matters and what you feel is right for you, what you'll enjoy doing. Because although that you could have had all the a la carte and all the added things and make all the extra money, if you're freaking miserable, who the F cares? So some people who give that advice, they're not necessarily miserable, and they may like that, or they may love managing people. For me, quite frankly, I didn't really like managing people. I didn't really like messing with all those extra things. I didn't like doing all those extra things. So I just came up with a price that really worked for me to do the thing that I really loved. And that was so freeing. So what's that for you? Is it a few things? It can be a few things. It doesn't have to be one thing. It can be multiple things. But are you adding things because you think you have to? Have somebody made you believe that you should? But for you, you're like, I don't really want to do that. And I don't really want to hire people. And then some of you might go, man, I'm fired up about hiring people. That sounds like a blast. I get a team. There's no right or wrong answer here. But what you've got to realize that I'm always trying to bring to the table is that there's people who are on either side of that, and they'll all speak with massive conviction. I'm not speaking with massive conviction towards either or. I know where I stand in my life, but that doesn't mean I'm going to push onto you what works for me. You got to figure out what works for you, but know if what you're trying to do just isn't sitting right, it doesn't mean it's the only way. And there could be another way that works better for you. And you don't need to be shamed or guilted or any other thinged from other people because that's what you really want. You can have what you really want. You can do what you really want. And I needed to hear that too. Rock and roll, my friends. Michael Gebben, your mind mechanic, tuning up hearts and minds one at a time so your ideas don't die in your heart, your head, or your hard drive. If you need some personal help with me tuning up your mind or helping provide some extra clarity to your chaos mind, let me know. Reach out to mindmechanic.net. Send me a message on Facebook. Appreciate you so much. Keep rocking, keep rolling. And go check out those reels. Right now, I'm recording this. I'm like cranking out reels here on Facebook and Instagram, TikTok. You can find me, Michael Gebben, anywhere. At the recording of this, there's about 7 out, but I've recorded about 53. So rock and roll, my friends. Many ways to come at your mind from different angles. 60 seconds, 16 minutes, an hour, 2 hours, and anywhere in between. I'm here to help. Keep rocking, keep rolling. Bye-bye.